Ladies and gentlemen, g'day, welcome to the channel. Excuse me, my throat is killing me quite a bit. My name is Economics Mate, and this is WOT Blitz. And to all of those new subscribers out there, thank you very much for dropping by and checking out the channel. It is very, very much appreciated. Now, we're going to go 4 for 4 here. Apologies for yesterday's video. It was a bit subpar in terms of the audio. Unfortunately, I was quite tired after a long day's work, and I had to make some kind of content for you guys, and I wanted to address the issue of, is Blitz dying, and quite significantly. And the reason for that is, I feel like in today's day and age, with the player bases that we have, a lot of players out there don't get to experience what it's like back in 2014, back in 2015, 2016, when we used to have all of these lower tier tanks. T2, T3, T4, all these different kind of tanks that you can jump. Even T5. There's tanks that are no longer available in the game for you to just research and to purchase at T5. And T5 was quite a fun tier to play alongside T4, 3, even T2. A lot of them that are still playing the game used to love jumping into those lower tier battles because they were so much fun. You have these tanks that are not exactly they're not overpowered by any stretch of the imagination, but they were fun to play. There were some tanks that were kind of cooked. There were definitely some tanks that were kind of cooked at lower tiers, and I'll give you a prime example. The good old Keniotsu was one of the most broken tanks in all of Blitz history until it became basically irrelevant. It became irrelevant, right? And this is what this video is about. It's about reminiscing about the past compared to the future, right? So I guess you'll see the title as, old World of Tanks versus new World of Tanks Blitz. Which is better? And many people may argue the fact that, but today there's, we got all these different game modes and all this, and what do you call it? We get to enjoy playing fun modes and stuff like that. I understand, and I get it. Fair enough. But, regular battles were so much fun back in the day. There were things that we never would have expected. I'll give you a prime example. We had +2, -2 matchmaking back in 2014, and I think towards the end of 2014 and beginning of 2015 they sort of got rid of that. But we had +2, -2 matchmaking, and what that meant was, it meant that if you played in a tier 8 tank, for instance, there was a very high possibility that you were going to be meeting T10 tanks. And that's not just from a failed platoon. No. If you actually were in a T7 tank and you did a failed tune in a +2, -2 matchmaking game, you in a T7 tank with a tier 8 platoon mate will be in a T10 match. And I know people who've done that, and it's pretty damn fun. You got an SU-152, with the 152mm derp gun, going into a T10 game. That's pretty freaking funny, if you ask me, right? I don't know if World of Tanks, like the PC game, had +3, -3 matchmaking. I heard a rumor that was true, that actually was something that occurred at one point in the game, very early in the game. I don't know if that's something that's true or not, but imagine that in World of Tanks Blitz. That would have been absolutely insane. I mean, +2, -2 matchmaking was already crazy. I can't imagine what would happen if we had +3, -3 matchmaking. Now, that was one of the things. I wouldn't consider that to be fun. It was a bit of a challenge for people who are in tier 8 tanks that are going to go to T10. They want to grind their way. But it meant, because you were meeting T10 tanks, if you did actually destroy them, you actually got more experience. You got more XP and whatnot, right? So you got more experience, you got more credits, because you basically destroyed a tank that's 2 tiers higher than you. It was perfect for grinding tanks, right? But it was a challenge, because if you had a stock tier 8 tank and you were in a T10 match, mate, you were gone. You had no chance of penetrating the front armor of any of those T10 heavies, for instance, or even medium tanks at T10. And with T10 back then, it was very simple. You had your British you had your British tanks. I believe the first of the British tanks was the FV4002. I think it was. That was the first British T10 tank. And then came the Death Star. The Death Star came along after that, and then the FV215B. Right, so it's very, very simple. They had like 3 T10 tanks. Right, the Soviets had the IS-7, which I believe was the first tank line in the Soviet, in the Soviet tech tree. And then came along the Object 268, I believe, or the Object 140/T62A. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it was one of those two. And then after that came the Object 263, which was another one, and then that was it. They didn't have that much else. The Soviets, I think, had the most. Then the Germans came along, and then they had the E100, which I'm pretty sure was the first sort of the T10 tech tree that the Germans had, and so on and so forth. Right? There wasn't really a lot to go by. Right? The French weren't in the game. I don't believe the Japanese. The Japanese might have come later on with the STB-1, but that was it. They didn't have anything else. There was no Chinese tanks. There was no European tanks. Nothing. That was it. It was American. It was German. It was Soviet, and then came along the Japanese with the STB-1, and that was it. There wasn't anything else. It was quite simple. There was like 3 or 4. It was like 2, 3 tech trees per nation. And that was it. That was your choice. You couldn't choose anything else. You couldn't choose anything less, right? As I said, very simple times. Very, very simple times. Now, in modern Blitz, in today's Blitz, it's very, very different. Today's Blitz has so many tech trees and so many different nations. I've actually legitimately lost track of what tanks I don't have and what tanks I actually have. I have, I think, like 30-something T10 tanks. Keep in mind, every now and then I'll jump on Blitz just to grind a specific tank line, just to get the T10. And I'd have like a ridiculous amount of free XP. And I have like times 10 XP boosters or rather certificates, and times 5 XP certificates from all those events that we've had and the free stuff that we've gotten. Right, and the what's it called? All that kind of stuff, right? And I got all those things for free, you know. So I use them. I basically use and abuse them as much as I can when I get the opportunity, because it's great. It really does help you get those T10 tanks without having to grind as much as you used to. But it sort of removes that. Not necessarily the fun factor, but the actual the amount of effort that you need to put in order to get that T10 tank, in order to grind your way through those tiers and through those modules in order to get the T10 tank eventually. And that's how it was back then. You had to grind your way. There was no boosters, there was no XP certificates, right? You had to grind from the get-go. That's how it was. So yes, I would consider Blitz back then to be more of a challenge than it is now. It's quite easy to get a T10 tank now. Very, very easy. Right? It's like minimal effort. You don't even need to do much to, to get yourself a T10. Minimal effort. And I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. Like for some of us veteran players, we don't really want to play that much battles anymore, but we just want that T10 tank just to play. It's a good thing. But for new players where they need to learn how to play the game, we've had a lot of instances where there's newer players who have these T10 tanks and are not performing very well at T10 because they haven't really learned how to use that tech tree line properly. As opposed to us more veteran players who've had to grind our way through every single tank when they're completely stock until they're fully upgraded to move on to the next tech tree, right? And we had to learn how to play those tanks properly in order to ensure that we win the games so we can get the most amount of XP so we can move on to the next tank. So it was a challenge, right? It was a challenge. And for us, as I said, and I keep saying veteran players because we've been playing this game for so many years, right? We prefer to have something that is of a challenge. We want something that's going to challenge us. We don't want something that, let's face it, is going to be piss easy to get. No, because then it just defeats the whole purpose. Like, why would you waste your time? Why would you, be like, oh yeah, why would I waste my time trying to grind this tank and trying to learn how to play when all it takes is just getting all these XP boosters and these XP certificates and whatnot. I can just buy my way basically through free XP, and I can get the tanks that I want. Why should I have to grind my way through? It's just you get this sort of mentality where it's like it's piss easy. You can just do whatever the hell you want. And I get it, I understand. And for a lot of us older players, that's fine. It's like, I don't really want to grind. I just want to play the game. I just want to play these tiers. I don't really want to grind, right? And I get it. It makes sense in that aspect. But if you want to actually learn how to play the game and you want to actually learn specific dynamics and skills and whatnot and the strengths and weaknesses of the tanks that you have, you need to grind out the tanks without using free XP, without doing all this stuff, because that is how you learn how to play. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. I recently researched and purchased the VZ57, I think it is, or 75, the Chinese, the tier 10 Chinese heavy tank, right? Or the one that looks like a main battle tank. I recently researched that one, which was fine, I recently researched it and I bought and I got it after using basically free XP, after using XP certificates of times 10, which within 3 or 4 battles in fun game modes, you easily have over 100,000 XP. It's ridiculous. That's how easy it is. I don't even have to play an actual battle. I play a fun game mode and then boom, that's it, done. And then you can just watch ads to get even more XP. And it's so easy. I honestly, it boggles my mind how easy it is nowadays to grind to a tier 10 tank. And I thought when I was playing at the earlier stages it was easier, and it isn't. This is so much easier now. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how Wargaming thought they thought it was a good idea to give the player base such an easy way of getting tier 10 tanks without actually working their ass off for, right? It's a shame, really, because it helps build sort of understanding and build character. It helps them understand the game dynamics and how the game is supposed to be played. It's a shame. I think there's a lot of improvement that needs to be made in terms of how the game is developed in regards to the play style and whatnot. And I think there needs to be a level of challenge now that's put back into the game. You can't just give players, tanks galore, and you can't just give them so much access to free resources that it's just like a no-brainer. It's easy for them to do it. It's easy for them. I'm not saying don't do it. Yeah, I'm saying have the level of ease when it comes to, getting tanks and ease of access of actually grinding tanks. But don't make it to the point where it's literally so easy to get a tier 10 tank. And for an inexperienced player, oh yeah, you know what? I'm going to spend some money on the game. Boom, done. And even if you're free to play, there is so much more that you can get now as a free-to-play player than when I first started playing, or when some other people started playing. It's unbelievable. Honestly, it's ridiculously unbelievable. I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying that there are better ways to go around it. I think Blitz has a lot to learn from its past. I think they should implement a lot of the stuff that was back then now, and they shouldn't implement some of the stuff. And I'm going to get to those in other videos in today's game. So I think that's about it. I'm not going to ramble on anymore. I've said what I need to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to keep posting videos about these kind of topics. I'm not really going to focus on how to play specific tanks and doing tank reviews and whatnot. I'll leave that to more the other YouTubers like what's his name, Meadsy and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm just going to make videos about certain topics and talk about things that I want to talk about, and I think that the player base are going to want to listen to. And I think that there are certain topics out there that don't get addressed enough, and there's certain issues and whatnot that don't get talked about very often. I might have been absent from the game for quite a while, but I still keep up with what's going on basically in the community and what's going on in the game. And I feel like there's so much more that can be added and so much more that can be improved on and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling on. You guys are bloody legends. Love you all. Take care. Peace in the Middle East. And I'll see you guys in the next video, I reckon. Peace out.